So for the purpose of this course, we'll be looking at the science.org website, which is a site that I am proud that I was able to contribute to and ship with Atipon. So to start off, to open the DevTools panel, we can right-click and click on the Inspect option. So here we have the DevTools of the Chrome. There is also a shortcut in order to open it and close it quickly, which is F12 on the keyboard. So there is lots of things going on into this panel, but we'll be taking them one by one. So first off, we have the most important tool that we have, which is the inspector. The inspector allows us to inspect any element that we have on the page. So as soon as we hover over any element on the page, we can see that on the right panel, this section that we are selecting gets highlighted for us and marked. There is also a shortcut if we want to choose that element quickly or that tool quickly, which is Control-Shift-C on the keyboard. The second tool that we have, which is the device toolbar toggler. Basically, this option allows us to preview our site on multiple responsive devices. So for example, if you want to check the responsiveness of the site on an iPhone 14 Pro Max, we can choose the device from here, and it will mimic us the look and feel or the behavior of it on an iPhone. And there is lots of devices that we can choose from here. We also have this responsive option. This allows us to select the width and height of the window that we have here, allowing for more flexibility. There is also, if we choose back to iPhone 14, if we click this rotate option, it will allows us to view the site in a landscape mode. We can also close this using a shortcut. If we click Control-Shift-M on a keyboard, it will close it quickly. We also have here different panels, allows us to do certain things with the site that we have. Lots of options that we will be covering, more like some of them, not all of them, but we can also navigate through these panels quickly by clicking Control and brackets, left or right bracket, to navigate between those panels quickly. Also, to the right, there is the preferences. We'll be looking onto how we can utilize that preferences settings later on. Also, if we click on that options here to the right, we can have the dock side options. The dock side allows us to change the placement of the DevTools relative to the page. So here we have it docked to the right. If we click on this option, we can move it to the bottom, or we can also separate it on a different window of its own. Let's click move it to the right once again. There is also this cool feature that we have that allows us to switch between the two most used dock positions or placements that we have. If we click Control-Shift-D on a keyboard, it will switch between the last two used placements of the DevTools. So it's pretty handy to have. So for the HTML debugging section, mainly we'll be looking into the elements panel that we have. The element tab is the most important tool to navigate through the DOM and debug the HTML of the page. So first thing, we'll be looking into how to manipulate the items that we have on the page. Let's say that we are to debug this header element on the page. So first thing that we can do, which is to double click on that element, any part of it actually. So let's say that we want to change that tag that we have here to replace it with a div, for example. If we double click on that tag, we can see that it gets highlighted to us. So we can write whatever tag that we want. Let's say that we want it as a div. We hit enter. You can see that it changes to a div. Let's hit Control Z to undo the change that we've done. Also, we can manipulate or change the attributes that we have on an element. So for example, if you want to change that attribute, which is class, we can, let's say, for example, we want to make it data class for any reason. Hit enter. We can see that the class has been changed. Hit Control Z once again. We can also modify the value of that attribute. So if we double click on the value of it, we can see that we have access to the classes themselves. We can, for example, write a new class just like that. Let's hit Control Z once again. Okay, so these are the basic double clicking things that we can do with an element. For also, if we right click on an element, we have a couple of options that we can use. We can add an attribute quickly. If we click add an attribute, this will highlight that we can add whatever attribute that we want. Let's say we want to name it as a header. So here we've added that attribute. We can also edit an attribute by clicking on this button. So here the whole attribute gets highlighted to us. Let's just delete it. Another option that we have, which is the edit as HTML. This option allows for more dynamic change, more flexibility to manipulate the element that we have, or perhaps we can just, like copy all of the element, move it elsewhere. So this is pretty handy to have. We can also duplicate element if we click on this. So here we have two headers now. There is also a shortcut for the duplication. If we click Alt Shift arrow down, we can duplicate it below it. Also, we can, like just delete an element like this, or just hit the delete button. So these are the basic manipulation actions that we can have in order to modify the elements that we have on the page. Another option that we have, you can see here that we have a small arrow to the left of an item, which allows to open and close of an item. Let's say that we want to expand all of the children of that element without having to manually click through all of those one by one. We can do that by right clicking and then hit expand recursively here. So this will open all of the DOM tree of that element, so we can see all of those elements opened. We can also collapse the children of that element. If we choose collapse children, we can see here that all of the children of that header element are now collapsed. Okay, so let's try to debug an issue that we have on the site. So let's see what we have. So one of the bugs that we have on the page, it's not really a bug, so it's just a bug that I've created in order to demonstrate a certain feature that we have on the Elements panel. So if we hover over this button, which is that says View Table of Contents, we can see that the contents of this button is misaligned. They are not centered. They should be centered. For example, if we look at this, yeah, we have the same issue here. So if we inspect that element, let's choose that element here, the A element, the anchor tag. So this element has an after effect that gets triggered when hovering. So when you hover over that element, the after element, which has the background color here, as we can see, gets triggered. So it's pretty hard to debug that after code when there is a state of that element that we have here, which is the hover state. So what we can do here is that we can force the state of an element by right-clicking and then choosing force state. And then we can have here the different states of an element. We are targeting the hover, so if we click on hover, we can see here a small yellow dot to the left on that element, which indicates that there is an active state of it, which is the hover state. So as soon as we target or active that state, we can now debug the after when there is an active state of it. So here we have the selector that we need, which is the button more hover. We can see here that it's activated, and we can see the different styles that are applied to it. So here we are suspecting that there is an issue with the transform element. So if we can just try to remove it, yep, we can see that the issue is now resolved. So we can move it into the code and fix the issue. Let's just remove that force state that we have here. Okay, another thing that we can use, let's say that I am searching for an element on the page. Let's say that we are looking for this element, which is the journal showcase. And I am navigating through this panel, but I can't see it on the page here. So how can I scroll into that element without the need to scroll all of the page to it? We can right click and then click on scroll into view. So this will move the view into that element, allowing us to view it instantly. Now there's a pretty strong feature of the Elements tab, which is the search. The search allows us to find an element of the page by string, as it says here, or a selector, much like a CSS selector, or an XPath. So let's say that to try the string, if we write any string that we have, let's write journal menu, for example. We can see here that there are 26 results of it. We can move them by hitting enter to move to the next element, or we can hit shift enter in order to move to the previous element. So the string search finds all of the elements or all of the instances that have this string. So here we have an ID that says journal menu. We have a class that says journal menu. We have an attribute values that says journal menu. Let's say that we don't want to find all of the elements or all of the instances of a certain string. We can do more of a selector search. For example, let's find all of the nav elements on the page. Let's write nav tag. So here we can see that the nav tag gets highlighted to us. There are two navs into this page. Here's one and here's the another. Let's search for an ID, for example. Let's write journal menu once again. So here it's all of the journal menus. Let's add a hash to it. So here we can have the journal menu element that has, or the div that has the journal menu ID. There is one little thing to that, which is that this will also find all of the elements that have the same name or have the same string. So it's not just a CSS selector, it's also a string selector here, as you can see here. So here it finds the value of the data target, which is the hash journal menu. So we don't want that. We only want to find the ID, which is journal menu. So we can do the attribute selection much like CSS. We can open a bracket, say ID, which is the attribute that we are targeting, and then we can select that ID that we want. So here we can see that there is only one element on the page, which is the journal menu, which is this element. Okay, so after knowing that we can write any CSS selector that we have here, how about that we find all of the classes that starts with the journal menu, for example. We can write that by writing this format. This is just a CSS selector that finds all of the elements that begins with a certain value. So here we can see that this element gets highlighted, which is indeed correct. The first class, the first value of the class, which is journal menu underscore underscore container. You can see another element here, which is journal item, journal menu item, and so on. So this is basically the search of it. As I mentioned, it's pretty strong to have. If you have good experience with CSS selectors, you can pretty much select any element on the page that you have. Now, there are a lot and lots of options that the Chrome provides from the preferences panel of the page. So if we click on this cog on the right, we can open the preferences panel. So let's say that we have an issue with a pseudo element that isn't accessible directly from the HTML. So here we have another bug that if we open this panel, as you can see here, and we focus into an element here, an input element, it gets shown as blue. We don't want that. It's clearly a bug. It should be another color, but not that color. So if we want to debug that input selection, we can inspect that input. We can look into the styles here from that element that are applied to it. The problem is that we can't access the placeholder selector. The placeholder which allows us to modify the placeholder of an input element. So in order to access it, we need to enable what's called a shadow DOM. The shadow DOM, which is the elements that gets added or rendered by the browser but are hidden to the normal user. So if we click on the cog here, we scroll down to the bottom to the elements here, and we click Show User Agent Shadow DOM. Hit X. We can see that after activating this, there's a little arrow that appeared beside the input element. If we click on it, we can see that there is a new thing that is called Shadow Root or User Agent. These are the hidden elements that are not accessible to the normal user. So if we click once again on it, we can here access the placeholder of an input. So after clicking on that, we can see the different styles that are applied to that element. So here we have a form control with a state of placeholder. The issue that we have here, which is when you click on that button, like when it gets focus. So here we can have that there is a problem with this selector. The color changes to blue into it. So we can just modify it and reflect it into our code. Another option that we can have here from the preferences panel, which is the show detailed inspect tooltip. If you inspect any element on the page here, we can read from it like basic things, which is the selector of it. You can see here the white tooltip that appeared above it. We can see that there is just the selector and the size of it. This option, the more detailed inspect tooltip, allows for more information to be shown upon inspecting. So if we inspect the same element once again, we can see that we have new information to us, such as the accessibility of that item. We can see the name that it reads, the role of it, if it's keyboard focusable, for example. For other elements, if it has some padding or margin to it, we can see that we can read the padding now of it. It depends on the element and its placement. We can here like see the contrast of that element. You can see the color, the font. So it's pretty handy to have. So there's this another cool trick that the DevTools gives us, which is the ability to take a screenshot of the page that we have, or a certain element on the page without taking a full screenshot. So in order to do that, we can do it in a couple of ways. So if we want to take a full page screenshot, we can do that by accessing the Run command panel. If we click Control Shift P on the keyboard, and then we type capture full size screenshot. We wait for a moment, and then we can see that it has taken a screenshot. So here's a screenshot of the page that we've just took or run the command on. We can see the good thing is that it takes the image depending on the size that the page is on. So for example, if you want to take a full a full page screenshot of the site on the mobile view, for example, we can just resize that screen to the size that we want, and then we can do that command once again. So let's see the end result now. We can see here that it took the screenshot on a mobile view. There is this blank area. If we just refresh the site once again to take it properly. So once again, we hit capture full size screenshot. Let's see the results. So here we can see that it has taken a screenshot of the whole page on the viewport that we desire. Another cool thing that we have is that we can just take a screenshot of a certain element on the page without the whole page. So for example, if we want to just take a screenshot of the header element that we have here, we can hover over that element, right click, and then there is this option which is capture node screenshot. If we click on that and take a look at the end result, we can see that we've only taken the header element. It was it is very precise. We don't need to use any snipping tools or something like that. It's pretty straightforward, and we can also take a screenshot of that element on a certain viewport. If we do that on a mobile, for example, we can see here that we've taken the screenshot on this viewport. So instead of having to hit Control Shift P each time to take a full page screenshot, so if we can just right click on an element and take a screenshot of it, why don't we just right click over the whole HTML, like the main HTML wrapper that we have, and then capture just a node screenshot. Let's see if that works. Yep, indeed it works. So we can just do that for ease of use. So for the guys that works with accessibility and they are concerned about debugging the accessibility of the site, DevTools provides us with an accessibility panel here. If we go to the second panel and then we hit accessibility here from the tabs that we have, there is a lot of detailed information, accessibility information over each element that we have of the page. For example, if we click on the header, we can see the attributes that it reads. We can see different like structure of it, any attributes added to it. One cool thing is that we have this option, which is enable full page accessibility tree. If we click on it, it will prompt us to reload DevTools. We do that. And then we can see here a little icon that appeared to the right, which what it basically does, it switches to accessibility tree view. If we click on it, we can see here that the full accessibility tree of the web page that we have. So this is just a representation of the like how the screen reader interprets the site that we have. Um, so this is pretty handy to have when you are debugging any accessibility issue that you have on the site. We can see the different like static text, if this element is focusable or not. So yeah, I think this is pretty handy to have. So for that's it for this section, the first section, which is the HTML debugging. It basically comes down to the ability to manipulate the DOM elements that you have on the page, to search through the elements and find the desired element that you want, and the other cool tricks and tips that I've just introduced to you that might come in handy at some point. So by the end of this session, there is this like most of the resources or the shortcuts that we've covered during this section. These are just the ones that we've gone through. So you can just take a look at them without the need to memorize all of those during the video itself.